that has seemed to be on the cusp of greatness in HBCU football. They have the branding ability, the marketing ability. They're one of the most popular HBCUs, yet their football team is abysmal traditionally. They are abysmal. Coach Gerard Wilcher was just hired from Rice University as Morehouse's new head football coach. This now marks a new era at Morehouse for football. Now, I got a chance to speak to Coach Wilcher along with the homies on Twitter Spaces this past week. And in speaking to Coach Gerard Wilcher, we got to know a lot of what his team will look like. So when it comes to the transfer portal, he's going to be super picky about bringing guys in from the transfer portal. I know every coach says that, but Morehouse shows that. Okay, Morehouse doesn't touch anybody in the transfer portal unless they already coming for academics and they like, oh, you can play football too? Yeah, come play football. So usually, no, but for real, Coach Gerard Wilcher said that he wants to maintain his philosophies as a coach without other guys coming in as a cancer just because they may be a shiny name. So I see that as a coach that will take the transfer portal with a very small grain of salt. He said he'll only bring in around 6 to 8 transfer guys a year. He'll mainly be a coach that brings in 30 freshmen. 30 freshmen. And another problem at Morehouse in bringing in transfer guys is the fact that Morehouse doesn't have a graduate school. So whether they're players, graduate from undergrad and have to play in graduate school later, or they want to bring in a transfer portal guy that's a graduate student, they cannot do that. It's impossible for Morehouse. So in Morehouse, you want to get them young. In Morehouse and picking them up young, they're going to pick up more freshmen, and around 30 freshmen a year was a target that Coach Gerard Wilcher said they would try to hit. Now, scheduling. Morehouse has one of the most difficult schedules in NCAA football this year coming up. Division I, Division II, I don't care. Your first 7 games being on the road is a problem. It is. Now, Coach Gerard Wilcher can't help that. That was nothing that was completely under the last regime's control. They now will start the season off in Canton, playing in the Hall of Fame game against Virginia Union. Then they'll go to New York and play against Albany State down in MetLife Arena. So they have a very interesting schedule. But moving forward, I asked Coach Gerard Wilcher if there were any teams they like to play regionally or locally that he really liked. And one team that he continued to speak about was Tuskegee, and they are on the schedule. They continue that classic. But another team was Hampton. He looked at Hampton University and thought about the history that they have against Morehouse and thinks that Hampton could be a very good opponent in the future. And I think that Hampton versus Morehouse game could be very interesting because Hampton has been very, very lowly in the CAA. They're looking for wins. I'm sure they'll pay a Division II team to play them to potentially get a win. Keep it real, potentially get a win. But Morehouse and what Coach Gerard Wilcher is building, I can see them, coming up and having a formidable team. Of the other scheduling issues, another issue that he kind of brought to the table, and something that I did think was pretty interesting, was that he thinks that the SIAC should adopt the PSAC, which is a Division II conference along the coast, should adopt their conference schedule. In the PSAC's conference schedule, they play 11 conference games. Of the 11 conference games, at the end of the season, there is no conference championship game. No conference championship game, guys. The conference championship game is made up of the 2 leaders in each division throughout the season. And at the end of the season, whoever the division leaders are for your 11th conference game, you will play each other regardless. You swap opponents. So in the SIAC, talking about last year, instead of possibly Tuskegee and Benedict playing one another, if they're at the end of the season, instead of playing the conference championship, at the end of Tuskegee's season, instead of playing Miles, they'd be playing Benedict. See what I mean? This is the type of change that Coach Gerard Wilcher wants in the SIAC, or at least he suggested as a decent idea, and I think it could be a decent idea for the SIAC. The SIAC is changing. They have now switched out of divisions. They no longer have divisions. They only have a 1 through 13 scale. And now there are certain rivalries that will be kept as teams are not in divisions anymore, but teams are going to fall off other teams' schedule. The PSAC model may actually make sense because teams fall off the schedule anyway in the SIAC today and how things go today. So that was just about all I got this week for